5, and the time now is 6 p.m., and I will call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's remote participation and remote meeting policy adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 13th, 2023, by resolution number 21-R-2023, remote participation will be allowed. The meeting link has been provided on the town's website and designated posting place 24 hours prior to the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of the town's general guidelines for public comment at open meetings and public hearings. The guidelines are available online and on the entry table. There are 2 public comment opportunities on the agenda for persons in attendance at Town Hall to address the board. The first is limited to items on the agenda, and the second public comment opportunity allows any subject, whether it is on the agenda or not, to be addressed. Mary, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Here.
Trustee Cartwright.
Here.
Trustee Adams. Trustee Crane. Trustee Hagan.
Here.
Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, July 14th, 2025, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mary. Please join me in a moment of silence for all of the victims of the flooding in Texas. Thank you very much for your time. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next is review and approve agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Okay, hearing none. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as is.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Schranz.
Here. Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Hagan.
Here and yes.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
And Mayor Whitlow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. We have an agenda for this evening. Next is our staff report by our town manager. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. You have my report. Just to check in to make sure you all received this in your mail in the last week. Just if it looks unfamiliar to you, let me know, but this was sent out to every Mead resident. So this is on our needs and future plans for the police. Just want to let you know, we will be mailing out a survey here by the end of July, I believe, on our trails and master plan and recreation. They've produced a statistically valid signature. A survey, and there'll be a return, already paid for stamped envelope. So we hope to get a really good response on it. It does take like 15 to 20 minutes to take the survey. So I would just ask you, when you get it, please take it, encourage your neighbors and friends. And also there is an online option if they don't want to send it in the mail. So just know that'll be coming here in the next couple of weeks. We had the library ribbon cutting on Friday, well attended. I wasn't able to attend. We had really good social media response on that. Well over 100 people liked it. I think it was really one of the first times that people really became aware that we were going to have a library. So that's always good when we have something that goes out there and people are happy about it. So anyways, Welker is closed between 3rd and 4th, which is downtown. They did close it today. And if you go downtown, you'll notice there aren't very many cars because all you can do is basically go west. So, and that is going to be for until the middle of August. They're working on the railroad tracks and on the storm drainage improvements. You can. Yes, you can get into the post office. And then finally, we did our construction crews return to High Plains Boulevard, and they're back out there working. So the county hasn't mobilized on their portion, but we are working away on ours. And that's all my additions to my report. If you have any questions.
Questions or comments for Helen? Go ahead.
I do. I'm still wanting an update on County Road 7 and 66 lights. Chief, have you had chats with CDOT, appropriate departments, changing that light?
It's been done. It's been done.
The changing it to one way each direction has been done?
No.
No.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I want it to be like County Road 13 and 66. And I'm still going to keep pushing for that and
Yeah.
asking for it.
There was some discussion about that, and I know it circled through CDOT, but I did not receive any feedback as far as what they were going to do, so.
Okay.
We'll circle back.
I
like it
would
had
keep
to-
pushing for that because 13 is so much. I mean, I want it to be exactly like 13. I drove through 13 just last week and I'm like, this is what 7 should be like.
Well, there's
So-
2 issues right now. There's that one, which is the sequential turn lane, which I
Yes.
understand what you're saying, and we have asked it. We haven't gotten anything back.
Okay.
The second issue is with so much construction
Increasing the
traffic, now 66 is backed up all the way to the interchange.
Amazing.
66 is, and so 7 backs up, but so does 66. Up till a couple months ago, 7 had about a 5-second chance to get through that
Oh, I
light.
know.
And then it backed up all the way to the intersection. Now it's an equal opportunity problem in that they now 66 so backed up. But we'll follow up with Katrina, the traffic engineer. And
Okay.
thanks for bringing that back up.
Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Anything else? All right. Thanks, Helen. Okay, we'll move on to our informational items tonight. The first one is the November coordinated election, and this will be presented by our Administrative Services Director, Mary Strutt.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Thanks for having me here today. I wanted to talk about the November 2025 coordinated election. I know the board has been considering a sales tax question for the ballot. And we're getting to the time where a decision needs to be made on that. So I wanted to bring that up to you and bring you the dates for that. Sorry, it was turned off. I had to turn it on. Got it. Okay. So here's some important dates that are coming up with regards to coordinating an election with Weld County. The first one is July 25th, and you'll notice that's before our next meeting on July 28th. So July 25th, we are required to notify Weld County if we intend to participate in that election. That's not an obligation to pay or anything at that point. It's just a notification to them. So kind of need to know a thumbs up, thumbs down to give to Weld County if we are considering participating in that election. By August 26th is when we'd have to actually sign the IGA with Weld County, and that does obligate us to pay for the election. And then September 5th is when we have to submit ballot content to Weld County. So we really just have a couple more board meetings, to make these decisions, to finalize any ballot language and get that all done. And November 4th obviously is election day. Just wanted to present to you what the cost is with running an election with Weld County. Just shy of $5,000. So it doesn't cost us a whole lot of money to do an election with Weld County. They charge us $2.50 per elector. They mail out all the ballots for that cost. They do all the election judges. They count all the elections. They give us the certified results. So it's $250 an election. The last election we did last year was $4,270. So just right around that range. We do have to translate our ballot into Spanish. That's required by state law. So again, the cost of translating our ballot language is about $400, probably a little less. And then we do publish it in the newspaper. So those are the only costs, direct costs associated with holding an election. Like I said, just shy of $5,000. And the advantages to doing a coordinated election with Weld County rather than doing one ourselves. Well, first of all, if we're doing sales tax questions, you can only do those during a regular election or a coordinated election. So those are the only opportunities. You can't do it at a special election in May, for example. So these are the only times to do it. But cost it's definitely a lot less expensive to do it with Weld County if we had to do an election ourselves. The cost is probably more like $25,000 because we'd have all the printing costs, the mailing costs, the election judges, the ballot counters, stuff like that. For that cost of $5,000, we can put as many ballot issues or questions on the ballot as we like. So if there's something else that you're dying to ask the voters, now would be the time to start thinking about it and get it out there. Yeah, and then the other thing is staff time, right? My staff's time of putting together an election is pretty limited with this, right? I coordinate it with Weld County. I work with their chief election official pretty closely, but they do all the hard work. Another thing with a sales tax issue is that the Department of Revenue wants to take a look at our language and not the ballot language specifically, the ordinance, which is the law that would go into effect if it gets passed. So last year when this was put before the voters, Marcus and his team drafted the ordinance for us. And I gave you each a draft of the ordinance from last year. To take a quick look at it, talk about it. The Department of Revenue has to have that draft language in July. So we have time to talk about that today. We probably have time to talk about that at the next meeting too. But this is where we need some decisions from the board, is kind of, now's the time. So that's all I had for my presentation, was really just to give you these important dates and kind of ask, how are we thinking we want to go forward? Are we thinking we want to move forward with this police sales tax issue? What do you want me to tell Weld County?
I'll start with Chris.
I don't have any questions. I was a full supporter in our last election to have this move forward. So I'm on board.
Okay.
I think we should present it again, and I think we need to just continue presenting it until we can get everyone on board with this. Obviously, we need it.
Yeah. Okay. Tricia.
I know we discussed this earlier and we were initially at the beginning of the year, we were all gung ho, but then we kind of backed off a little bit. I felt like I did, at least with the uncertainty of the economy and what was going on. I kind of do feel like that has calmed down a little bit. It's not quite as uncertain as it was even a couple of months ago. So if the rest of the board is wanting to push forward with it, I'd be fine with that if we all feel like that's the best route to go.
I am 100% behind it. I'm very committed to it. I'm taking all the steps I know to take to help move it forward. So I'm if that's what you need, you got.
Brad?
It's a tough one for me because I definitely support the police and that's kind of the direction the money's going. But I think there's a lot of places we could tighten our belt a little bit and control spending more. I'm a conservative, so I'm more limit the spending, not ask for more money. So that's kind of where I land.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm in full support of it. I mean, it's not going to go away, and it's getting more and more and more. And I think it's another good chance that we can go out and ask the voters for their help. So, and I have a question about the ordinance, if I may. Do we need to fill out the yellow?
Not at this time. Okay, so again, this was the draft ordinance that we presented last year. The yellow that's in there is, and we would update this with dates.
Right.
The yellow is because we were deciding the percent that we're going to ask voters and the dollar amount that yields. I don't have to have an answer to that question to present this to the Department of Revenue. It can go to them with just those blanks, unless you want to talk percentages right now. Happy to do that. What we're more looking at is on page 2. It's the actual statute, right? We've said in the past that if the police sales tax is approved, that it would go into a segregated fund strictly for the police, right? So the question is more, do we want any changes to how those funds would be used? Again, remember, this is a draft we would be presenting to the Department of Revenue. So that means we could change it before it's definitely approved by the voters or approved by the Board of Trustees and goes into effect. But I think if we would take a look at page 2, where it says section 4-3-60, public safety fund established. Again, it says, as I noticed before, that it would be kept separate and segregated from the general fund or other funds. The question, if there's any tweaking or changing or language that Marcus might need to update, might be in the money in the public safety fund shall be used exclusively for public safety in the town of Mead, to include additional police officers and equipment, additional school resource officers, police public safety facilities, and increased community policing, and shall not be transferred into the general fund or used for any purpose other than public safety. So if there's like a bullet or something jumping out at you that's not in there, this would be the time to talk to Marcus, and maybe Marcus has something to say about it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that I think the language remains accurate, or at least it's accurate for what the board wanted to accomplish with the funding last year. But now's a great, as Mary said, now's a great opportunity to talk about any changes that you think might be necessary to that.
Yeah, I'd like to open it up for the discussion, and I also would like to ask our chief of police too, if he sees anything that needs to be added. You can either, chime in now or.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
It's right here.
I don't see anything that needs to be added. I like the language in general. I do recall a conversation about the term public safety, questioning whether we wanted to use that, because that could be construed several different ways, even to include fire, other services. So maybe replace that with police services, just to continually be specific about what we're talking about, leaving no no area there that could be misconstrued as something else. Other than that, I think it's very good, and I don't have anything else to add or change.
Okay, I like the change.
Yeah, I like that too. 'Cause
I like the
sometimes
change.
I'll think of like, oh, I don't know, the cones out here. That's public safety. You're keeping them safe from the construction, like. So you're right, that could be construed other ways.
Any other edits?
Yeah, no, not edits. I'm believing that this is a tax for the police so that we can do all the things that we have said we had to do and needed to do. I think the money should remain to do that. I don't think we should add anything to it, because I don't see the police department as a one-time hit. I think we're going to be touching this again. I think it's important that we tell the public that your money is going here and this is where it's going to be spent, period. And I'm in support of that. If we're going to start splitting the money up, I'm no longer in support.
Yeah, okay. Good idea. Okay.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
And how much was the total estimated revenue from a 1%?
Thanks, chief.
A 1% is about $1.8 million currently.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So we're all in agreement to change the public safety fund to police services fund? Okay. And then does anybody have any ideas about percentages? We might as well talk about it now.
I guess.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I mean, you said that would equal 1.8 million. What's the current budget for the police next year, say?
For
Or the-
2025,
whatever we-
the budget for the police was 3.4 million.
Wow. Okay, so it'll cover about half.
Yeah.
Is what you're
And that's general services of the police. There
not
also is the
including-
police impact fund, which generates just a couple $100,000 a year. But several, about 5 or 6 of the police vehicles are paid out of that police impact fund, which is the impact fund, which is charged to new development.
Yeah, we're looking at those fees, right? Because that seems like so little. Doesn't seem like that's enough. All these new developments coming up.
Used to be a lot little.
Oh, I bet it did, but I mean, I know we have to justify it and everything, but I'm assuming that's one of the numbers we're looking at. So,
Are you-
so it's about half though, is
So
what.
you're looking at 1%?
1% would be about half their budget.
Yeah.
So I mean, we would still be contributing half of that from the general fund.
Chris, go ahead.
I like police services, but maybe law enforcement services is a good choice. Because that's essentially what we are doing is providing for law enforcement. It might cover more than just what people think of as the police.
That's true, because don't we have the people who do the mental, like help with a crisis type thing, could that, I mean, if we brought, I don't want to say broadened it too much, but I mean, that's very much in connection with the police. So, yeah, I don't know how you would
I don't know.
maybe include that service. I don't even remember what it's called.
Victim services.
Victims.
I think law enforcement is more encompassing.
Yeah.
Police seems to be very pointed.
I mean, when we talk about police services, when I think of it, I think of, okay, we are talking about building a police facility. But in reality, that's more, I mean, it's gonna be more generalized than just a police facility, not because it's got the fire department next to it, which really has nothing to do with us at all. But because it's law enforcement, it gives us the opportunity to bring in, I mean, if we have a holding cell, for example, we may need somebody to manage the holding cell that may not be a police officer. So it would be a bit broader, but still concise and dedicated strictly to law enforcement. Am I being big paintbrush here?
I think that law enforcement services works well. I think police services works well. I think that it's really up to the board side what you think will, communicate best the purpose to which the funds will be used to the voters.
Either one for me.
I'm okay with law enforcement.
Okay.
I think that's a good move, I think. It's easy for me to talk to, because it is all encompassing that. Not specific to just one thing. That's a good idea.
Okay. All right. So we'll change the police services to law enforcement.
I'll work with Marion. And as you stated, this is just for the purpose of getting a draft ordinance to the Department of Revenue. Nothing's set in stone and it can be,
Okay.
obviously modified.
Okay. So do we need a thumbs up for anything about the percentages? I mean, would you like to have more of a discussion on that, guys? One?
I'm good.
One?
I did just put up for your slides the chart that I had a couple weeks ago at a board meeting about the expenses of the police since 2019. So it does show the 3.4 in 2025 and how it's increased in the last 5 years.
So when we put this into its own fund, it would be called law enforcement services? Okay.
Mhm.
Not public safety, because I think that public safety is like everything, like you said,
Right.
phones and barriers and.
And we would still have, and we call it, we have it under departments and police in the general fund. So we would still have expenditures under the general fund for the police.
Okay.
We're gonna pay for everything.
Yeah. So summary at 1% and change it to law enforcement services. Is that enough? Is that enough direction for tonight?
Yes.
Mark,
And
do you
then,
need anything else from us on that? Okay.
so we'll bring the IGA back to you in August and ballot language back to you before September 5th.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mary. Okay, move on to our police update. Chief Brent Newmakes, you can be up there for a while now instead of going back and forth.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Appreciate a moment of your time. Trustee Harris, I think you were trying to think of the co-responder program. Just so happens that one of the co-responders spent a great deal of her time here today. One of our officers was called to a location where an elderly female living by herself was having some difficulties, had lapsed on a number of her bills, spent about the last 3 days with no electricity, no air conditioning, water was about to get shut off. You can imagine the significant issues that were culminating there. So our officers spent a couple of hours trying to make some phone calls and help her out. But a co-responder saw the call come up and called our officer and said, "Hey, that's not normally what we do, but I'm happy to come help you and see if there isn't something I can do." And the officer was very grateful for that, said, "Please come help. Let's see what we can get done." So the officer spent a couple hours there. The co-responder spent over 4 hours there. At the end of that call, was able to report back that the power was back on. All of her bills had been caught up, and she had done a significant amount of work helping her fix that. It wasn't a matter of having the money, it was getting the actual things done, a lot of it involving technology, online payments, that type of thing. So anyway, one of our citizens is much more comfortable tonight, thanks to the co-responder. Very grateful for the things that they do, and appreciate the extra time and effort into that call today. So thought that was relevant with just bringing them up, but they do an important service, and it's such a tremendous asset for us to have them and be able to rely on them for helping citizens in need, for sure. So tonight I want to give you a little update on activity since we just passed 6 months this year. Wanted to kind of compare the last couple of years. There is a specific reason why I don't go back more than 2 years. It has a lot to do with our records management system and when we changed over to a new system and how we record calls. Some of those kinks are still kind of getting worked out. And so there are some fluctuations that are noticeable that indicate more of how we document things than the actual activities. But nonetheless, I want to start off with real crime, things that get reported to us typically. So these are sort of your rundown of those typical things: assaults, burglaries, thefts, that type of activity. And you can kind of see the harassment, theft, a couple they're maybe considered more minor crimes, but they tend to be kind of a larger amount of call load for us when it comes to these actual crimes. One of the things I thought was interesting, stolen vehicles do seem to be on the decline. I think we went from 24, 22, and then this year we're only at 6. So we're hoping that that trend continues and that we've actually made some progress there. There are some other things like subjects with warrants, that type of thing, that I feel like we're having more of a presence, keeping up on some of those things. It's actually driving some of those numbers down. And I know that's a little bit opinionated, but that's kind of what we're seeing. And if you have anything sticks out there to you to be a question, you can let me know. But that's kind of just a snapshot of the last 2 years in whole. And of course, 2025 is halfway there. So you kind of have to double the numbers in 2025 to see what we're projecting will look like in the end there. The next one is additional duties. These are more things not associated with criminal activity, but things that officers commonly do. Checking on people's well-being, such as the call today. A citizen assist a lot of times is someone their cars broke down, something like that. And then details and events are like special events that we would work. And then follow-up investigation obviously is huge. Officers are doing their own investigations. So there's a great deal of follow-up investigation that they all do and takes a significant amount of their time. So most of these calls, you can see the first slide, almost all of those things come through dispatch. So dispatch, someone calls into dispatch and says, I need to report this, and dispatch sends that on to us. These things right here typically are initiated by the officer. Either they're coming up on something that they're acting upon to help someone, or they're following up on their cases, or they've been assigned to a special event or detail. So not coming through dispatch, essentially. This is probably where we've, one of the things that we've seen the greatest increases in is traffic-related activity. In particular, traffic accidents and traffic issues could be anything. Could be a traffic hazard, could be a traffic complaint about someone's driving. But those numbers are certainly trending up, as you can see. And if you double those numbers for 2025, they're significantly more than what we've seen years prior. So that is one area that we're seeing pretty dramatic increases. I think we all can relate that a lot of that is related to construction activity that's going on, and just some of those common issues that we're seeing sort of culminate from that. So these are numbers that are specific to the things that come through dispatch. And so we receive calls through dispatch basically three different ways. First, you're all familiar with 911 emergency line. And so those are the numbers for that shown there. And so all 3 years are together. So you can kind of see that that's trended up the last 2 years. We may be slightly below last year's by the end of this year if that stays true. And then the non-emergency calls, a slight decrease from 23 to 24, and we might be pushed up a little bit this year if that continues. The next 6 months is the same as the first. And then safe to tell, a lot of those have to do with school activity. That program is primarily pushed out to children in school and utilized for them to report things that they're concerned about in an anonymous fashion. And that state runs that program. But those reports have the ability to get to police if they're of a criminal nature. If they're not, sometimes they don't. They also go directly to school administration. And so the ones that we see come through dispatch, and those are the numbers there that that we're seeing. I had some concern for a while that was going to continue to escalate and become a significant time burden for us, just sorting through those and figuring out which needed our attention and which did not. Now it seems to be leveling off a little bit. I think attribute some of that to children becoming more familiar with the proper purpose for that. And they've also allowed for a couple of instances where people were held accountable for abuse of that system. And so I think that tended to limit the amount of abuse of it. So those numbers are trailing off a little bit, but still a fair amount of activity that mainly school resource officers deal with. And then our totals have been increasing. As you can see, that number this year is going to be, if it continues where it's at, be pretty close to last year's. And so those, a lot of times we talk about the total number of calls for service being around 8,000. And so you can see slightly less than half of those are actually calls that come through dispatch where the officer receives the information from dispatch versus the officer coming upon something, seeing something, taking some action on themselves that they tell dispatch to record. essentially. So those kind of two things go back and forth. What we would like to see is that officers don't spend more than 50% of their time working calls from dispatch, that they actually have about 50% of their time to do follow-up investigations and proactive work, which would be neighborhood watch, special projects, traffic enforcement in areas where we're having issues, that type of thing. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of where we stand with that, which is pretty decent shape right now. So I think that was the last slide. Did that raise any questions or make you think of anything different that you'd like to see?
Go ahead, Chris.
Over the past 3 years, how long have we been fully staffed?
Well, I guess we were saying, hey, we finally got fully staffed when we had 16 people on the payroll. At that time, a couple of them were still in training. One of them just got out a week ago as we lost another person. So that's a pretty good question, but very little. We've really been working. It's taken us quite a while to working up towards 16. I mean, when I walked in the door, there were 6, and you know, it's been nothing but hiring and since then. So we've spent very little time at full staff. And if we considered full staff to be no one in training, everybody on the street working their solo duty, then yeah, it's been very little time that we've actually been there. And speaking with other departments, there's always some fluctuation, and very few are able to maintain fully staffed level. I do know a couple departments that are now trying to carry half a dozen overhires to try to maintain something that looks closer to being fully staffed. But that's a difficult mark to get to.
The reason I asked is I'm just curious how many calls we miss from not being staffed enough to be able to cover them, or do we miss any? And it's a pretty broad statement, but I'm just curious if 2 calls come in and there's only 1 officer available, what happens?
It's a really good question. And so the calls are prioritized. So certainly a higher priority call is going to get the attention. If someone's calling in to report that someone broke into my car last night, I need to make a report. No one's there now. We call that a cold call. There are times when those sit for maybe 4 hours before an officer gets to it. And because they're on something that is actually happening, even a traffic crash is something that requires a more urgent response than that type of criminal report. So depending on the priority, and then if they're both priority calls, need that response, and we only have 1 officer on, the officer picks one of them, goes, and then we request another agency to backfill and respond to that other call until we can get an officer there. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to capture that data and show you like the amount of times that happens. And I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I'm hoping to, because I think that is an important piece that we'll want to consider when we get to a point of evaluating when do we add more staff to be able to cover the calls that we're receiving. And that with a combination of how much caseload are officers carrying, and are they able to, complete the investigations that they're tasked with. Several different factors that will plug into that. But I'll try to come up with some of those stats and share a little more detailed information with you in the future.
Okay, I think those numbers are not reflected in the numbers that you showed us tonight. Because they would
Correct.
not go to our department, is that right?
We would, well, we would still, we can still pull those out because they are Mead calls. So
Okay.
just because someone else comes over and either assists us, or even if they handle the call in its entirety, we would still have a record of that.
Okay.
In our catalog. It's at this point in time, it's very unusual for an agency to come in and handle a call. Normally, the call is something of a higher priority, and that agency might get there first.
Mhm.
You know, if it's a domestic violence assault in progress, something like that. But almost always our officers are showing up and taking that over. With the exception of State Patrol handling crashes on I-25. In that case, they're taking the crash, and we may not even we may not even go on scene. But outside of that, almost always our officer eventually arrives and takes the report.
That's it.
Trustee Hagan.
You'd mentioned the co-respondent when you started talking. Who's that person work for? And does your budget pay for part of that, or is it totally like a Weld County thing?
So we formed that program with Tri-Town, so Firestone, Frederick, Dacono, and us. The 4 agencies collaborate on that. North Range Behavioral Health is the sponsor, so they're North Range employees and so North Range tries to run that with grants, which they've done a pretty good job of getting grants that are available to subsidize that program. And then we subsidize whatever's not funded by grants and pay for some of the equipment, actually supply some of the equipment. They're on our radio, computer, and they have a caged car, which is a cost plus vehicle from one of the police agencies.
Trustee Strands.
Chief, is it fair to say that the majority of the crashes that our police department responds to happen in I-25?
I always try to break those numbers out in the blog. I want to say it's somewhere, it usually hovers around 50-60% on I-25. So usually more than half. But we're logging those crashes that occur in our jurisdiction. But the crashes on I-25, Colorado State Patrol is primary for, and so they're taking the reports on the majority of those crashes. We will respond if it's an injury crash and we think we're close. Our officers are usually closer and can get there faster. We're responding. We're also responding a lot during the construction because we know if we can clear that crash off, there won't be 5 more in the meantime. So it is a collaboration, but the majority of our reports are not on I-25 as far as the crash reports that we're taking.
So those numbers that you just showed, those crash reports all happen within Mead,
Correct.
not I-25?
I-25, well,
Or is
the
it
section
included?
of I-25 that is Mead, it
Well,
includes
okay,
those. Yeah,
all right. So
it includes those.
the point I'm trying to get to is that 6 miles of I-25 is costing us half of our resources for half the crashes. If there was
Correct.
some magical way we could get rid of that 6 mile responsibility, we would be much better off. Is that true?
Well, we would reduce the number of things that we have to respond to for sure.
Which would make our police force
the
more-
opposite of that is if State Patrol said, we're not handling those crashes anymore because we don't do that in other parts of the state. We don't have the resources to respond to all those crashes. I can
Right,
guarantee
right.
that.
Well, I'm just thinking out of the box a little bit that says if there was some unique way to find a way to relieve us of that primary responsibility, would it benefit the police department? And I don't know what the right answer is, but it's, if I didn't have to do that 6 miles, we'd be golden. Right?
You can dream.
Is it that nobody wants to take the state on?
Wouldn't that just reduce 50% of the calls for accidents?
Yeah, it would, but that's where 50% of the time is being spent on I-25.
Of the accident,
Yeah, for accidents.
but all the other things would still be 100%.
Yes, yeah. I'm just looking at just that one section, that one piece. And I'm sure we have some sort of IGA with the state that we would do that. No?
Yeah, it's in our jurisdiction. So if it's in your jurisdiction, you have to do it. It's not like, we don't do it optionally, but it's part of our responsibility. I mean, though, if you're talking about getting rid of it, I think the only way would be to de-annex I-25. But then the county or the state would have to take it back. So.
Okay, and I don't know where I'm going. I'm just thinking out loud here. It says, somehow or another, we got that 6 miles 100 years ago or whenever the cars first came out or something, but we got it. I just don't see as many Firestone or Johnstown police on I-25. Even in their areas. When I drive through Johnstown, I don't see a Johnstown cop sitting at an I-25 accident.
Firestone doesn't have any of I-25. And Frederick only has a bridge or something extremely small.
How did we end up with the lion's share of it?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows why we annexed 6 miles of I-25. Nobody knows why. It was so many years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody has any idea why in the hell we did it.
And there's no way out of it other than de-annexing? I don't even know if that's the right solution, or if it is a solution. Okay, I got my answer.
Cut everything on the east side of I-25 out of Mead because we would no longer be connected, or would we just?
No, you're just de-annex, just.
Adams and
I don't know.
Welker and all the other things that are connecting us to the other side. And just throw that out.
No, it would just be the I-25.
Just the road.
Just the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the input, Chief.
Chief, I think it'd be interesting to find out how or when, excuse me, not how, but when these accidents happen. Is there like, is it during the day more? Is it nighttime more? And how long are these incidents taking our officers off a community policy, policing or whatever? I think maybe if we could ever get that detail, that would help us bridge that. We need that 1% because our officers are doing during the daytime or the nighttime or whatever. I just expand the detail if we could, but this is great, what you showed us today. It would be interesting to find out if you could track it down between like 8 and 12 and 12 and 4, and I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting to find out when these are happening.
The, a couple different things there. The information of when they're happening is one thing. And we've definitely seen a trend of it being worse on the weekends. And the only thing we can attribute that to is more people driving on I-25 that normally don't and aren't familiar with the traffic pattern or construction that's going on. And the other piece of that is the length of time that officers spend on a call. It is something that fire pays very close attention to, and they're really good at tracking. And so we've tried to replicate models, and it doesn't work because officers function differently than firefighters do, in the sense that they'll stay attached to a call until they complete a report, which might mean that they're on scene for 10 minutes and they're completing a report for 50 minutes. And so are we counting that 60 minutes, or are we counting only the 10? And some of that is difficult to gauge. So I think we'll get some much better data soon as some of the technology catches up and we're able to track it.
I was just wondering if we needed to buy software to do that. Is there anything that we can do to help you make that possible so that we can I don't know. I think it's more transparent if you have something like that you could put a dashboard out, you can
Yeah.
track it.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eye open on a couple of different things. If there's something that we think would be beneficial and could meet that need, at a reasonable price, I'll certainly bring it to you. But, right now, we made this change a couple years ago in our, records management system. We're extremely disappointed in how that under-delivered, and, almost a lot of agencies are just in that same boat. Just doesn't seem like there's a lot that seems to be working real well at the moment. So we're looking at a couple of different things, and once we kind of know what direction we want to go, then certainly bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to showcase your workload.
Well, thank you.
I think it's important that everybody knows how a call when it comes in, and even if it's a flat tire versus a terrible crash on 66. I mean, it takes time. So, and follow up too. So is there anything else for our chief tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. So I know this is not directly related to the police department, but it kind of is. So I'm one of those people who is really big at reporting hazards in the road, because I always think to myself, the car or the person I save could be one of my children, could be me for that matter, right? So I've always been really big on reporting hazards in the road. And it used to be when I would dial star 277, you would get an operator pretty much immediately and be able to report that hazard in the road. The last 2 times that I've tried to call, they have a new menu. And I don't know if you've tried to make a call to star 277 to report something. It took me 10 minutes today, multiple times, and I know I shouldn't be telling you this. I'm driving on the road trying to report a stupid hazard in the road by calling star 277, and their menu is so confusing and so long that I'm almost like, why do I even want to take my time to bother to report this? And the only reason it really bugs me is because somebody's going to hit whatever the hell is in this road, possibly in the 10 minutes it takes me to make this damn phone call to report it. Like I said, I know it's not directly you, but I don't understand why they made their system so freaking complicated now that you can't simply report something. It's not a 911, because they say call 911 if it's a accident with an emergency or an injury. Well, it's not an accident but it could be.
Is it CDOT? Who are you
Yeah, you're calling, well, no, you're calling Colorado State Patrol. They are the ones that will come and take a hazard off the road. But if it's a pothole or something, then that's part of their menu. They're like, oh, well, if you need to report a pothole, you need to call this. And if you're in this section and you need the state, you need to dial this. And if you're in this section, you dial this. And you're like, you listen to this 5-minute menu just to figure out that, crap, I pressed the wrong button. Now I got to hang up and I got to go back and dial over again. I don't know. I just thought maybe I'm just venting to you, but seriously, I see it as a problem. Like, things are not going to get reported because people are going to be so frustrated that they're just going to be like, screw it. And to me, that's not safe. And I don't know. Like I said, I just thought I'd throw that out there. You can do with that information what you'd like.
Trustee Harris, you can just like say, hey, Google, and then tell them the hazard in the road. So your interface, either through Apple CarPlay or Google, there's actually a button on it, or you can just say, hey, Google, there's a road hazard ahead. And like, I drive I-25 every day, 50 miles a day, and I report it that way. And they're constantly coming through. They tell you when a police officer's ahead, they tell you road hazards, and then they ask you as a driver to re-verify if it's still there. But it's just a simple interface on if you have,
I mean, I do, but I don't always have maps on because I know where I'm going. I don't need a map.
always do it with maps, because it tells you about hazards and you can do it right through that map app. You don't have to call anybody, and it's very accurate. And Waves is the same too. So I'm just saying, because I use it all the time. I report it, and other people report it. So just a suggestion. Or dial 866 and then go through the menu.
Chief, I'm not going down that trail, but have we thought of, because I know other communities and other towns use some volunteer people to help with accidents. So citizens, actually, citizen patrol of some sort that goes out and does some of the basic things for accidents. I know Longmont has a group of those community officers, I think they're called, something like that. Have we considered any of that kind of stuff to help relieve the actual police officer from some of the administrative tasks of an accident?
We've talked about utilizing volunteers for some things. Not investigating crashes necessarily. I think Longmont's team, they typically come out on, you know, major scenes and that type of thing where it has to be closed down for a long time, so they don't have to post officers there. They'll come out and relieve them and hold the scene if they need it and that type of thing. But it's a fair amount of training and you need a fairly good sized group to sort of make it function. Would be our difficulty, would be getting the number of volunteers we need to be successful in that. But I am considering, you know, ways to use volunteers in the future. And I think that there are some ways that we could productively use volunteers to accomplish some tasks to save officers some time and keep them out on the street a little more, that type of thing, as we grow. So I'll keep it in mind, but yeah, getting those volunteers and
I understand those challenges, but the reason I bring it up is I have heard some of those kinds of comments. So you may get them, and I think it would be beneficial and apropos to say what you just said, that we are looking into it. Volunteers are not easy to get. So if you're asking me the question, you're going to volunteer? So that kind of stuff, because I think it covers a base. Because it is, if it happens, if we can make it happen, it does relieve police officers from some of the administrative stuff that just takes up their time and keeps them off of calls.
Right.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right, nothing further. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Mead in Motion Parks Open Space Trails Master Plan Update by our town planner, Colin Lance. Sir, you have the podium.
So trustee mayors, or mayor trustees, I'm here to give you a brief update on what we've been doing with the post plan and then let you know what you can look forward to later on this summer. So right now we're obviously in summer 2025. So we're doing a lot of pop-up engagement. Our consultant team was just at the bike parade on the 4th of July. Talked to a lot of kids there, got a lot of great feedback. We're currently wrapping up the existing conditions assessment that was done in the late spring. We also hosted our first open house last spring as well. And I'll get into that here in a second. But yeah, and then as you can see, we'll start working on a needs assessment here this summer into the fall. And then we'll start working on options and recommendations in the fall. So where we've been, on the 10th of June, we had our first technical advisory committee meeting. So this technical advisory committee is made up of several different members. We have members from the town of Berthoud, town of Firestone, city of Longmont, Weld County, the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization. We're not technically in the NFRMPO, but they're just to the north of us with their boundary. And then we also had representatives from the St. Vrain Valley School District as well. So this technical advisory committee meeting is really kind of twofold. One, to learn best practices from other jurisdictions on what they've done with their parks, open space trails, what's worked, what hasn't. The other part of that is how we can collaborate in the future. So how can we connect to the town of Firestone? How can we connect trails to the town of Berthoud, Longmont? And how can we work together, leverage funding to put in these trails? On the 16th of June, we held our first public open house. So we had roughly 20 people come out, had a lot of great feedback, just talking to people about what they want to see, what they like, what they don't like about our current system. Heard a lot about expanding trail connectivity from trails within neighborhoods to the broader area within town. Another theme that popped up was agricultural preservation. So preserving the farms on the outskirts of town, also as a growth management tactic as well. So open space and growth management. So that's something that we'll look at further as we get into this planning process. The 23rd and the 24th, we had a consultant team out here on site in all the parks around town. So they were just doing an assessment of where the parks are at, if there's anything maintenance-wise that they need. They met with Bo, the Public Works manager, operations manager, talked to him as well about the status of parks. We also have an engineer working on assessing the trails within town and their status and any maintenance that's required on existing trails. As I mentioned, 4th of July, we had pop-up engagement with our consultant team at the bike parade. And then on July 7th, our first public survey closed that was on the website. We're really excited. We got 193 complete responses, and then we also got 79 partial responses. I don't have any of the data ready today, but our consultant team is working on preparing a report to kind of consolidate all the results, let us know trends that they saw in these survey responses. That should be ready here, hopefully by the end of the month. When I do get that, we can provide that to the board, and then it'll also be available on our website. And then I just included some fun photos from our open house. A big hit at the open house was that map on the right. It's just a map of the town with our existing trails and asking people to kind of draw in where they would like to see trails, let us know what they would like about trails that are already existing, and then just any other ideas they have for parks and open space. So that served as just a great kind of meeting area and talking point for people throughout the meeting. And then we also had some boards set up asking people, what they like, what they don't like, what they'd like to see in the future, and also got in high level on some funding mechanisms for any features in the future. And I just got a quick where we're going slide here. So as I mentioned, that first report on the public survey will be released. They'll be on the website, and we can also circulate that to the board. And then at the end of July, as Helen mentioned earlier, we have a statistically valid survey that will be going out to all Mead residents. We just finalized, or we're finalizing questions this week with the firm that runs these surveys. So those hopefully should be getting out here by the end of the month. And it also has an online option, so people don't have to mail it in. Yeah. Outside of that, I'm available for any questions, if you guys have any.
Questions, comments, or Colin? Go ahead.
I don't know if you guys have any contact with the railroad, but have they, I mean, I never see any rail cars on there. I mean, they'll park them there once in a while, but has anybody talked to them about abandoning their, because they've done that in Firestone, they removed all the tracks, and I just don't see them running on there, but that would be a great corridor, obviously. Cuts right down through town for trails. I didn't know if there's any contact there. And then the second question is relative to connectivity across from east to west of I-25, because this is going to be a busy intersection. It's not really that pedestrian or bike friendly. The one at 66 isn't. We don't have anything underneath at 34. So is 28 the only place we're going to have a connection across there for, that's really kind of a safe, like inviting crossing? Or are we even going to have one at 28?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know right now where we'll have those crossings, but that is something that we'll look at with this. Because like you said, we have a lot of neighborhoods coming online on that east side that need connection to the west side of town, and to downtown itself. So I don't have an answer on where each crossing will be at this point, but it is something that we're cognizant of and we're taking a look at. To your first question, we did invite Great Western Railroad to be a part of the technical advisory committee. We didn't hear back from them. We're going to keep reaching out in the future to try to look at collaboration with them, whether that's abandoning railroad or if that's, co-locating a trail within their railroad right away or something of that effect. So we will keep working on the future, but we have not heard back from them.
Same question about the ditch company, the Highland Ditch.
Yep. So we have been in contact with Dale Rademacher. He owns the He's the president of the number 3 irrigation ditch. And so he's already done a couple interviews with our consultant team, given us a lot of great feedback. And then he's helping us and will be helping us in the future collaborate with those ditch companies on, co-location of trails and various agreements to try to use those as a amenity.
Thanks.
I think.
Brad, just an FYI. So those tracks are pretty much crap. Like in order for them to actually use them, they would have to put millions of dollars into making them good enough. Like they can run empty cars on them, but they can't run like full cars on them. Those tracks would fall apart. So they have to like run the, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, they have to run the cars on them like once a year in order to maintain something or another.
Justify having to try.
Yeah, to justify having the tracks, basically. And so they just come and they park those there for a while and then they take them away. But they're not actually usable tracks. They're not. They can't be, and unless they put in a substantial amount of money to make them better. Just unless I'm wrong, Helen. Correct me if I was wrong.
I'm not going to correct you, but they wouldn't agree that it's something that they do to maintain their right of way. They claim they need to do it, and then they usually leave them there for a while. But it is a good question, and luckily our friends at Bro Real Estate actually own that railroad, and we have very good contacts with them. So often you can get bike trails to coexist. So we'll look for partnerships there. I did want to mention, as far as connections across I-25, on the 38 bridge that's going to be put up in December, we worked really hard, Eric and I did, to make sure CDOT was putting pedestrian and bike facilities on that bridge. And on the Welker Bridge, it's supposed to have 2-lane bike lanes. At this point, it isn't striped that way. There is a sidewalk on the north side of it, but I think it's going to get restriped when they put the roundabouts in, but both of those bridges, as well as 66, has the capability for bikes and peds to go across. There's also that underpass that's just north of the 34 interchange. And we have that on our trails plan as a connection underneath I-25. Now, we haven't developed that, but that's an opportunity. We also have a piece of trail that we're about to get from the state because they're getting right away from on the east side. So all of that's in the works, but it's not, at this moment.
Okay. Hey, Colin, is there going to be a second meeting for the technical advisory committee?
Yeah, there will be some point this fall. We haven't nailed down a date, but it'll probably be mid to late fall.
Could you invite the Dr. Cog staff?
Yeah, we invited them to the first one. We'll certainly invite them to the second one as
Okay,
well.
they have a lot of data that you could use.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our proclamation for Wildfire Awareness and Firefighter Recognition Month of July 2025. I've asked Trustee Schrantz to read the proclamation.
Proclamation, Mead Wildfire Awareness and Firefighter Recognition Month, July 2025. Whereas Colorado's summer season brings increased heat, dry conditions, and the potential for dangerous wildfires that threaten our landscapes, homes, and a way of life. And whereas wildfire risk is heightened in rural communities like Mead, where open spaces, agricultural areas, and wildland-urban interfaces require constant vigilance. And whereas our local fire departments, including the Mountain View Fire Rescue Team, respond quickly, skillfully, and courageously to protect lives, property, natural resources from the threat of fire. And whereas firefighters, emergency responders, and dispatchers undergo continuous training and make significant sacrifices to serve our community during wildfire season and throughout the year. And whereas public awareness, personal responsibility, and fire mitigation efforts are critical to reducing wildfire risk and improving emergency response outcomes. Now, therefore, Colleen Whitlow, Mayor of Town of Mead, Colorado, does hereby proclaim the month of July 2025 as Wildfire Awareness and Firefighter Recognition Month in the Town of Mead and urges all residents to join in recognizing the critical work of our first responders practicing fire safe behaviors and remaining vigilant during wildfire season.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the signing of this proclamation?
I'll make a motion to approve the proclamation.
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Shran.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. We'll move on to our first public comment. The board welcomes public comment at this time for any item on the agenda. We will also take comments for the items not on the agenda during second public comment number 10. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. All comments should be directed to the Board of Trustees and not to specific individuals. If you wish to speak during this first public comment period, please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Please start by stating your full name and address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you are representing a group, you have 5 minutes. You will have 5 minutes. We ask that all speakers and audience members treat one another with respect and dignity. Let's ensure we maintain a welcoming environment and avoid any actions that could be distracting. Mary, do we have anyone signed up for public comment at this time?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there anybody here in the room that would like to speak to the Board of Trustees? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains items which are considered routine and approved with one motion and vote. I would like to recognize staff for putting together these items and the board for reviewing them ahead of tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Shran,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. And again, thank you, staff, for putting it together for us. Next is we have no further general business, so this brings us to our second regular public comment period, which would be for any items, whether it is on the agenda or not. We will follow the same guidelines previously stated. I will call on speakers in the order which they have signed in. And again, I ask all speakers and audience members to treat one another with respect and dignity. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to speak to the board at this time? I see none. We'll move on to elected official reports. Any of the town trustees would like to bring up anything? Trustee Hagan, and then
I have 2 quick things. I just wanted to know, I probably should have asked Helen during her report time, what's going on at I-25 and the County Road 28 underpass? It's been closed a long time.
I mean, Erica could answer or I can. That is the lateral for the water district, or they're running that underneath I-25 and they have to dig into the road to do it. So it's closed
A lateral,
until,
like a ditch?
no, like tearing up the road. It's a 30-inch water line.
Oh, it's a water line.
Yeah, yeah. So when are they opening back up? August 14th? I can't remember. I
Oh, that
put it in.
I hope it's before the first day of school.
Yeah,
It's August 13th.
it was the third. I can't remember. I'll get it.
That's gonna be rough for people coming. from when they open.
Well, I mean, well, I'll get you the date, but that's what's
It'd be a
going
plus or
on there.
minus 2-day thing.
When's the first day?
August 13th.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
But
6 feet on,
It's just the 9th graders and like 6th graders and new students. The actual day, first day for everyone is the 14th. So the 13th is usually pretty light.
So
day,
the
but
day
14th
that they're
will be
opening Welker
a
again.
lot.
but if you think about that project, it's a 30-inch water line. It's 6 feet down. And they have to keep it between the stanchions of the bridge. So that's why it's a big project. It's not just a quick, throw it in. So
Yep, we're doing similar things for.
exactly.
The second one, I just wanted to acknowledge that I got positive feedback from the brewery owner and wanted to recognize Mary that he had a lot of positive things to say about how much help she was in that process. So that's all.
Good job. I don't know how many of you know, but I've been working with my community to have a community appreciation night at Margill Farm. So that is going to be happening on August 8th. I would like to, on behalf of that HOA, invite any of the trustees that would like to attend. It's an ice cream social. Give them my name, they'll give you a free ice cream. They will give it to you anyway. But hopefully it's an opportunity to mingle with more community members. A shout out to Helen's staff for the help that they have given us putting it all together. It will be a movie night as well at the park. So I'm hoping that we'll have pretty good attendance, but it's an open invitation to any of the board members who would like to attend. That's it.
Trustee Cartwright?
And I'm not sure who can answer this, but do we have any updates on the 1601?
The last update I saw, Erica forwarded me last week, it's still a little bit of back and forth with CDOT. We're fine as far as CDOT's concerned in getting to the Transportation Commission. They're trying to get our application in the absolute best form.
Okay.
So that we hopefully will get it approved.
Okay, I see them piling dirt up there. It's like when they move dirt, they put it there. So it's kind of interesting to watch.
Well, they won't be piling up much longer because they got to pull all that dirt out of the way where the new interchange is going to go. I mean, the road itself. So.
Okay. I just want to acknowledge the efforts that Lorelai's team put together of course, Erica's team put together for the groundbreaking for the library. It was well attended. We had another windy day, but it was a wonderful turnout. So very excited for that. And just wanted to big shout out for you guys. And Chief was there and Mr. and Mrs. Peterson couldn't make it, but thank you very much for putting that together. And that's all for me. And I'm going to turn it over to our 2026 budget discussion and bring up Administrative Service Director, Mary Strutt.
All right, thank you, Mayor, for bringing me back up. And we've been having these 2026 upcoming budget discussions for the last few meetings. Kind of been talking a little bit about what to look forward to and how to put this budget together. At the last meeting, I did a presentation on the 2025 projects and some that we're looking forward to for 2026. So I started to develop this spreadsheet of the projects that were presented to you at the last meeting. And there's some blank spaces at the end of it. And as I mentioned to the board last week, this is kind of what I'd like from today from the board is to fill some of those in, right? Let us know. This is your opportunity to speak about your wishes, your goals for the town. You have 2 copies of this sheet in front of you. The reason I gave you 2 copies is because maybe we can all follow along with Marisol and write things in there. But then I'd also like each of you to maybe mark your top 5, numbering them 1 to 5, so we can start prioritizing some of these projects at the end of this. So I open it up to the board, Mayor, if you want to take that and get some input on what you'd like to see for upcoming projects.
Well, that's open. That's an open question. Oh, yeah, I can open it up for just
this meeting.
Right, same as last. I particularly on this list for myself personally is a reserve policy discussion. I really think that because of the things that are happening in the federal government and the different things that are happening in our weather system, I think that we really need to think about making sure we have money in the bank in case something happens. We've been lucky in the last couple of years to have grant funding from all different spectrums from state to federal, and I really do appreciate it. I know that the purses are getting smaller and smaller with give outs, and I think we need to really think about looking for the future for the next board and for our citizens, that we really need to think about upping the reserves for the town of Mead. And that may be taking something off the table for next year. But I think it's really important to have money in the bank, so to speak, for emergencies, to provide services for when something does need or is broken. So that's my number 1 on the list. And so I'd like to open that up if whatever you guys think your number 1 on this list is.
Or add, for sure.
Or add.
Blank lines.
Yep.
Add what you'd like.
Lots of stuff happening.
And Mary, could you tell us again what our reserve policy is? What is the actual policy percentage?
Certainly. The state law, Tabor, requires us to have a 3% reserve of expenditures in our general fund. 3% of a $10 million expenditures is about $300,000. That won't cover a whole lot in case of emergencies, right? The Board of Trustees has a reserve policy of 30 to 40%, so it gives us a little bit of wiggle room in there, not being a set number. So obviously that's $3 to $4 million would be our current reserve policy. We've held reserves the last probably 4, 5, 6 years at about $6 to $8 million because the board's been more comfortable with a higher amount being held in reserves because, as we've talked about, if an emergency happens, if a disaster or a tornado or a flood comes through Mead, those bridges that fail or those roads that fail don't care that we're the town of Mead and we have a small budget, right? They still cost the same amount of money. So the board has definitely encouraged us to keep more like $6 to $8 million in the reserves, and we have done that for the last several years. One of the problems with it not specifically being our policy is when we apply for grants. And we've specifically applied for grants with DOLA, and DOLA's been like, you got $6 million sitting there. Why don't you just pay for it yourself?
Mhm.
And we say, well, we have this reserve policy, and they look at it and they're like, your reserve policy says 30 to 40%. So so far we've been successful in getting grants, but that could hurt us in the future. So if, the board wants to continue that reserve policy of keeping more money in reserves, we should just document it so that we have it.
Well, it's going along that discussion point, we've got projects currently in the mill, and the town staff has been extremely successful in obtaining grants to cover some of these projects that we got going. But if something all of a sudden were to stop and that grant money just shut off tomorrow, with our project still half hung out there, we need to have some sort of contingency plans to deal with that, because it's a very real possibility that something like that could happen. And we're going to be left with a half-done project, and we don't have any money to fix that. So I think I'm in support of your comment. I think reserve policy is key. It's issue. I think we're going to have some challenges in the next few years. And we ought to be in a position to be able to deal with some of that. May not get it all, but at least we've thought about it, and we haven't just not hung out there with half a bridge. I lived through that in California. We called it the eighth wonder of the world. They built a bridge over 101 and it sat there for 12 years unfinished.
Yep.
12 years sitting over the highway. But anyway, I don't want to see us do that. So I agree. I think that's key.
Well, I would say that in conjunction with that is the facility planning then. I mean, if we don't have a plan for what's next, we need to know where we're headed, how much we need to save for that. Obviously costs can always change, but I think that facility planning kind of goes hand in hand with us knowing, okay, here's how much we can put away, or we need to be putting away versus for a future project versus going to reserve versus going, like, if we don't have that plan in place, I think that makes it a little bit more difficult. And it's the same thing with the trails, the post plan as well, and kind of knowing, okay, here's where we're looking to spend. I love our 5-year pavement plan. I think that's awesome. Gives us a perfect roadmap that obviously that we can make changes to it, but we know where we're headed. We know when things are going to get done. And yes, an emergency could pop up and something changes along the road, whatever. But I love having that plan. And I think we need that same sort of thing with open space, facilities. If we don't have a plan, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what to save for. We don't know where, I think having a plan is super important for kind of everything that we do. If we have no plan, how do we know where we're headed? Budget wise. So
I think we could still do a lot of this. Like, I would say for 2026 would be this year of planning and design. And I see a lot of things that are on here, the comp plan, strategic annexations, facility plan, the police facility design, these, and you know, these other things that maybe we just step back for a year and say, listen, this is what we really need to do. However, I think we still need to put at least this, I still think that we need to have something in, and we may not get to the full, I would love to have 100% reserves. We may not get there, and you know, we may not get there in the first couple of years, but that could be a goal at 100% while using 2026 as a design and facility planning year. Because we're not going to have that much money. We have no idea how much it's going to maintain the community center. We have no idea how much is going to, you know, and we really need to make sure that we do this the right way. So I don't know, that's just my opinion for right, you know, I think that all of these things are good, but I think we need to make sure that we know when we leave this position, we have something to hand off to the others. And it's good, you know? And I think it's really important for all the rest of this stuff is we could do it and just have a discussions, you know, like the in-house IT services. That's something that we could look at. And why am I talking all of this? Chime in, guys. Chime in. Yeah. But I just think that, you know, since we don't know what we're faced in the next year, I think this would be a great opportunity to have discussions on what you're talking about, facility planning, meaning the whole, just a planning year, comprehensive plan. You know, we've got all these.
I mean, honestly, we're finishing up a bunch of really big projects that they're going to basically run a lot of our funds down to pretty low levels, which is fine. We saved up for them. We planned for them. This is fine. But it's going to take us at least a year or two to save up more money for whatever it is that we're planning. So, I mean, I guess I kind of feel like we have no choice but to kind of spend this year to plan.
Yeah.
This next year to plan. We really don't have a lot of money to play with at the moment because we've spent it all on the projects that we currently have going. And so I guess I don't see that there's an issue with kind of taking that time to plan because we don't have a lot of money to play with once all these big projects are done. So.
Yeah, and I agree about the Mira funding for High Plains and interchange funding and things like that. We can ask the Mira board for their feedback when we come together next time. And some of these things that can be planned out for next year too. So, and I understand it's really important to have space for our police, and maybe that's another, you know, as we're talking about facility planning, does that bump that plan for the space for them while we're doing the planning? Does that make sense?
I think it's also going to be key to find out how we do in November. If that becomes a factor, either positive or negative.
And speaking of planning, I think based on the presentation the lady gave last time that went through all the counts, and it seemed like she just kept on going back to our sewer fund as potentially the least financed and stable of our major expenditure, and I think it holds a lot of liability. I brought it up a couple times before, but if we have to do an expansion and we don't have enough money saved up when that expansion is, then the whole town or are gonna have to go into debt for it. Or we could look at, you know, being proactive and connecting to St. Vrain and getting rid of that liability. I think that would be worth looking, something to plan for.
Weigh in. Do you kind of follow kind of what we're talking about? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
You know, I would actually put facility planning 1 in and just do the discussion on the reserve policy at 2. But make sure we have some kind of goal when we're talking next time about this, that it should be a significant increase of where we're at right now. Because if we're up against a brick wall, we're not going to be able to provide services for this town. We won't have the money to lease snowplows or buy snowplows or buy cars or lease cars. We won't be able to provide the services for rec. We won't have services for admin. Of course, we will not have any attorney whatsoever. No, hey.
Superfluous.
I just think it's important that we encompass some of these things on this list, the comprehensive plan. You know, these all things are intertwined and somehow strategically and how we move forward.
Well, you got to get down to, I think, nice to have versus have to have. Because that's where you're gonna spend your money. There's a lot of stuff here that's nice to have. And if you had the money, fine, like splash pads and stuff like that's a nice thing to have, but is it a have to have? It's something that the town needs to have in order to keep moving forward.
See how much it costs, you know what I mean, and do this forecasting on what it costs now versus what's gonna cost in 2 years and then 5 years. Do we invest now for a splash pad, you know, and what's the return, what's the return value of it?
Yeah.
That was interesting that somebody put pool on the community center as one of the things that they were looking for. I'm not looking for a pool, but I was just thinking maybe we should throw the option of bonds into this just for discussion. Even though, I mean, we're debt free, but there's still a possibility that we could raise money with bonds that are essentially funding themselves. So maybe that's just a way to look at being able to put more money aside for all these projects. I'm just kind of thinking we have to look more than just 2 years down the road, or 6 years down the road, or 10 or 20 years down the road. And maybe a 10-year bond that's for $2 million will cover something that we can't afford to pay for, but it could pay for itself over that period of time. So I'm just kind of, just for discussion, throw that out there. Well, yeah,
Yeah, right.
of course,
Good
of
luck.
course. Well, and I know it's one of those things, you know, but bonds are just weird because they return more back to the community than they do to the people who put into it generally.
I think it's a valid point.
Yeah, it is.
To,
I know.
to have it out there and do the investigative work of what it takes, so on and so forth, rather, be more proactive than reactive.
Yeah.
Be more prepared in the event that 5 years from now, that's a trigger you have to pull.
Yeah.
That we're not going in blind.
Yep, and there's another thing to look forward to, and that is that at some point down the road, not all of us are going to be on the board, and it'd be really nice to have. We picked up a big pile of sticks with a lot of ideas and nothing planned, but I think it's really nice to say, okay, here's our plan for what we see happening in the next 20 years, and maybe that's something we really do need to look at is what are the things that are coming that we know about, that we can actually say, okay, in 10 years, we need to do this. And get that on the books now so that when we pass things on, we can look forward to saying, you know, our legacy is that we gave a solid background, something solid footing to the people who come after us. So I don't know how we do that. I mean, comprehensive plan is great, except it's really kind of it's that, to me, the comprehensive plan seems a bit pie in the sky type stuff. It's a little bit way out there, and maybe that's what we need. But I think we also need to look at short term and moving forward short term.
Did you get input?
I think it was a great discussion. If anybody has more discussion or if Helen wants.
Well, what I hear is not just a facilities or an overall plan, but also a strategic financial plan that would accompany it. So, you know, where are we going in 5, 10 years? What are our needs and how do we, also financial strategies, bonding. As you all know, or may not know, but Mura can bond and Robert Rogers has been wanting us to. So, I mean, it may be, that's been in the back of my mind for a long time of participating in the funding of the 38 interchange, because we're going to have to do something. We could bond through Mura. And Mura has basically a guaranteed stream of income to pay the bond back. It's better for the health of Mura. We didn't talk on this list of Mura things, but what I'm hearing from you all is great because it's, you know, looking at the sewage treatment plant, looking at the facilities, but also not just facilities, but just general planning and how to pay for it next year and beyond. So yeah, this is a great discussion.
Or in order to plan for how much we possibly want to spend, you know, I don't want it to be just willy-nilly, which it has been in the past to a degree, been kind of willy-nilly as far as, I mean, I love Highland Lake and that was great. And, but then, you've got that weird conservation easement next to it and everybody's always like, well, what, we can't do anything with it? Why do we have that? And I mean, obviously it's agriculture, but, I want to have a vision and not just pluck this here, pluck that there. And
Well, and the other thing, and Mary and I were talking about this today, is I know at one of our retreats, we talked about revisiting that privilege tax that we kind of
yeah.
fell over that didn't.
Uh-huh.
So some revenue enhancement ideas, I think we ought to circle back on. For example, that bed tax. We were just looking at the revenues that were coming in primarily from Gopher Gulch. And so we know we're going to get a hotel sooner or later. I mean, when this I-25 is done, our corridor is so ripe for that. To get ahead of that, remember how it went down like 90-10 for a bed tax that no one who lives here would pay? Remember how we were all aghast at that? I just wonder,
That was long.
should we look at that again in our menu of choices for things moving forward? Most places have some kind of occupancy tax that's greater than $2 a night. So I just
think I think that a lot of people thought that and thought, oh my gosh, if I ever VRBO my house, I'm going to have to pay a tax on it. Like, I think that people thought if I rent my house out, I'm going to have to then pay tax on people renting my house. I think that got misconstrued was a lot of the problem with that. So we probably need to, but
I think
that and the warehouse or privilege tax,
Yeah.
I'm still all for looking into both of those. But I think if we look at that warehouse tax, we've got to include the businesses at the beginning. Very important.
Well, that's part of your planning, right? To identify your revenue generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot, I mean, it's a lot more fun to talk about what we can spend money on, but sometimes you got to think about where you can save money too. So,
Yeah.
that should be part of the discussion on really trying to bear down on where the things we could squeeze a little bit and cut out. I would bring up roundabouts, but that was last week's meeting. So, I mean, there are things that obviously I think, and we've talked about some things about putting out new RFPs to get maybe a broader range of things. We seen no action on that. Just different things. I think there's some places we could save money.
I mean, 5 years down the road, we have this half of the building to look at too, which I think is kind of slipped through the cracks. I mean, it's going to be there and once that new station's open, they're gonna move. So
It's after the next two stations. They have to
Right.
build that one and then one east, and then they're gonna leave
yeah,
one to us.
they're ready to go though. They're ready to go. Mountain View's
There
ready.
you go, VRBO, the other side of this thing.
And then we'll collect our own tax.
So I mean, there's that, and then the lodging tax. People, I think the misconception of the lodging tax was that people would have to pay that tax, and the truth is, the people who rent the room pay the tax, not you. So
I think
and
what we've learned though, with any of these initiatives, is we have to do the education.
yeah,
Because
and
you
that's
can't
it.
depend
Yeah.
on our community just to interpret
Understand it.
really what it is you're trying to do.
Well, couldn't we just write it so that it doesn't include that? It only is for hotels, or is that not possible?
Well, I think we had some of that stuff. The problem I have in this
It was-
community is that as soon as you see the word tax, it's an automatic no. Nobody reads beyond what that is.
People took that and they totally twisted it to make it something it wasn't. They took it as to, if I live in my house and I had somebody come stay at my house, they have to pay the 7% taxes. It was so convoluted, but what people did to it, instead of just being straight A, B, C, you rent a room in a hotel, you pay 7% tax, the revenue comes to the town. Done. No, nobody else. It doesn't affect anything else. And it just wasn't done like that.
I think we've learned a lot about doing that, and I think we need to just continue to do those kinds of things with any of these initiatives that we're talking about. There's an education component to it.
Well, and we have this business task force that I think is a great launch pad for ideas.
Yeah.
Because we have people in the community that have businesses here that have complaints, legitimate complaints about how we process things. But they also can serve as a conduit for fleshing out these ideas. Because who would be opposed to something that nobody here pays for, that is anticipating a hotel, is anticipating, because it's a lot easier to do it before it comes. But there's revenue generation, and there are ideas like, do we want to recover more cost? Our park rentals, what we do over at the community center. I mean, there's a lot of ways to squeeze money back out of the process. And we've always had this, basically development plays its own way. And we get pushback. We charge too much money for things. We need to look at all that in the mix of, because we are, we have revenues coming in and we have money going out. So I think what I'm hearing from you all is a comprehensive look at a deep dive into what our budget's going to look like over the next 5 to 10 years. And how can we make it more effective and more efficient?
So Helen and Mary, is there things that are on the list that are a must? I'm thinking of the development application management software. I think that's a must. I don't know what's on the list that staff needs. I mean, is a dire need on this list. And that's what I'd like to discuss.
That we need to have that discussion, because this is really like spitballing list of what everybody wants.
Right.
But when we still have to gauge all this with whatever money is there.
Right.
That particular thing would have a recurring expense.
Right.
$40,000 or $50,000 a year. So you have to, like I said, I want to put this thing in a big spreadsheet before we can come back to you and say
Right.
something's a priority. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a priority if you can afford it. And
Right.
then you look at some other things.
Same thing with the police facility design at 100%. What's the gap?
Yeah, so we're going to 30% on the contract that you approved tonight.
Right.
And part of that is doing a site selection and then basically doing a needs analysis of what the building would look like for how much money. That's what we're going to get out of this.
Okay.
To take it to the full 100% has to do, all the design drawings that are site specific. This was put on here in anticipation of our sales tax passing. If it does pass, then we want to put our foot on the gas, because we would then probably not have to lease space. If it doesn't pass, we have outgrown our fat clothes of that police station. You guys have seen it. So we're probably going to have to look at renting space somewhere. So some of these things would go off the list or go on the list, depending on the police tax and depending on what we find out on our projection for revenues. Right, Mary? So.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we address what the actual dire needs are for 2026. And if it's, you know what I mean? If it's not on this list, get it in the budget, if it's something that we really need, that this is the wish list, but I want to make sure that we address what we have to have. Okay.
So the 1.8 million for the 1% that we're sending out, or that we're gonna put on the ballot, if it doesn't pass, we're still gonna be within budget. So how can we really impress that we need that money if we're gonna have this police department regardless of whether it passes or not?
Because if you look at that graph that Mary showed and you see that line, and it was 1 million 5 years ago, and now it's 3.5 million, whether we can cover it in 25, the problem is the growth of that curve. Even if we didn't have another officer, the cost of so much of the police cost just keeps going up. So the real problem is how much it's eating into the general fund as we move forward.
But if it doesn't pass, what are we gonna do?
Try for again next year. We're going to
But what if it doesn't pass for 5 years?
We're still gonna pay for it.
we're still going to pay.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah,
We get new police facility. We would definitely have to slash some of these things that we would really like to provide for the community. Just that splash pad is what, $2 million for the splash pad or something? Yeah, it's kind of a lot of money. That's why we put it as on a phase. It's phase 2. I would love to provide a splash pad. Everybody wants a water feature. They wanted a pool. That's out of the question. But a splash pad, I think, is really important. I think a lot of people in our community would really enjoy a splash pad. It's $2 million. If we don't get that, police funding, then guess what's not going to happen for quite a long time? That splash pad.
Everything on this
Because,
list goes away, points directly to the police.
you know, we have to start cutting stuff.
So that's why it's important to get this tax passed.
Very important,
Very.
very important.
Took us 4 times on the streets. And we finally beat people into submission, if you will. But we also have great success with it. We have our 5-year plan. We are showing visibly what people are paying for. And the police is really a matter of, it's eating its own. It'll get up to 50% of our general fund because our general fund doesn't grow that much. Now, if we can get, now that we have all this infrastructure, and if we can start getting more commercial opportunities with sales tax, then our revenues will come in. And that's another way to generate revenues. So, but that's the real problem, is that graph. It's the growth. Not so much, we can manage it right now. It's basically 1/3 of our general fund. But when it gets closer to 50% of our general fund, then you see a degradation of services. So.
I think to Trustee Hagan's point, as we see that go up and eating more into our general fund, and if it is exceeding our revenues going up, then we're gonna have to start making some tough decisions about what we're gonna cut. And the board will need to be making those decisions about what services we don't provide if we can, as we continue to provide police services. You can't cut bullets or guns or body cameras. The police need those services or need their tools to do their jobs. So if it doesn't pass, based on the way that graph looked a whole lot, was going up a whole lot faster than our revenues were. I think that's the reality.
I mean, and they're already.
There's my doom and
in
gloom.
their building. So we're gonna have to
Outgrown.
rent more space for them in order for them to continue to function and do their jobs the way that we would like to see them do it. And that's just gonna, as our population grows, we're gonna have to keep adding more officers, which, I mean, it just seems like this exponential line that there's really no way around.
It was pointed out to me by someone that Mead has the highest employee to resident ratio in Colorado, or it's right there at the top. So that's kind of what one of we're probably in that awkward size of a town where we have to have the full police department, we have, full staff, and it wouldn't grow that much if we added another 4,000 people to go to 10. So that's probably why we're in that ratio point, but it's also a big reoccurring cost to have that ratio.
In our area of our town is a little bit different than most. Because it goes across all 4 sections of I-25 and 66. And it's just, it's got more lane miles than most. So it's a little bit difficult to, justify not having any more officers. So.
Well, in public works too, probably. Because if you have all that road and
Oh my
more
God.
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
to maintain.
Definitely.
You gotta look at public works and the police department as a continuously growing organization as your population grows. There's a direct correlation
Right.
to that, so.
But Brad makes a great point, because it's like, if you have a soccer team, you never need 11 people. Whether you have a high school of 500 kids or you have a high school of 10,000 kids, we're like in adolescence right now in a growth spurt. And so the ratio, I would agree, our total number of employees to our population is probably higher. But there's a carrying capacity of what we have that can get us, with a population growth of another 1,000, we probably only add a couple of employees to it. But I get your point. I think that's a legitimate point.
I don't get that often, so I appreciate it.
All right, so are we kind of facilities planning, bringing in some of these wish lists that are on the project list? I would still make sure that we're having some kind of, maybe, I don't know, looking at the reserve policy at 100%.
Yeah. I
And it
mean,
will-
thank you. I feel like this was a great discussion. I feel like it was great for staff to hear, the direction that the board wants to go into. And we'll work that in definitely into our budget discussions for 2026. And I'll be back here next time for some more.
Okay.
If you want tonight.
Thanks, Mary. All right, anything before we need to adjourn? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We'll wait for Mary. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Shranz,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. The July 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is now adjourned at 7:50. Thank you. Enjoy your night.
Thank you.
Hmm.